Hi guys, this is probably going to be my last day on jury duty, and that means I probably will be back tomorrow. At least I hope I will be. But today we've got one more day in which you've got to kind of get through some material that I would have covered had I been there, and so it's important. It's not just filler as you wait till I get back. So I want you to focus in. I want you guys to take it seriously. I want you guys to think about what you're doing. Let's connect the dots again with what we've been covering. We're looking at prejudice and discrimination in American history. We started last week with an overview of what prejudice is, how it looks, how it acts, how it's a part of our history. Excuse me. Then we looked at our first group, the Native Americans, who in the 19th century, the 1800s, the prejudice against them was that they were savages, that they were less than human, that they were undeveloped, uncivilized, and of course in the way. And so white Americans continually pushed them westward under the reservation system, and when they resisted, it became outright war. And you read about all of those massacres and Indian wars that occurred in the last 40 years or so of the 19th century. Last Friday you took a look at the experience of the slaves. Slavery, of course, is perhaps the greatest, meaning the largest, most significant example of discrimination in American history, in which, supported by our Constitution, made legal in the United States, the enslavement of other human beings, this group particularly, people from Africa, stolen from their countries, from their continent, brought across on the Middle Passage, horrendous conditions into North America, as well as Latin America, as well as South America. In fact, all of the Western Hemisphere saw slavery. And for America specifically, we were a country that sanctioned it, legalized it, and then, of course, fought about it. And we studied the Civil War last semester. Slavery, though, was the cause, or the primary cause of the Civil War. And last Friday, I had you reading some excerpts of slave memoirs or slave memories of their experiences, things that they had written down or passed along to further generations to give you a glimpse of what it was like. Today we're going to take the slave story and we're going to flip it to the other side and take a look at the abolition story, or abolitionism as it's oftentimes referred to as. Abolitionism was the movement to abolish slavery, hence the word abolition, abolish, to get rid of. So what we're going to be looking at today is how abolitionism started, who were some of the key people that were engaged in abolitionist behavior and certainly in the movement. And we're going to finish off by reading three documents that explain Abraham Lincoln's view on abolition. Why will we finish with Abraham Lincoln? Well, of course, Abraham Lincoln is the great emancipator, as we refer to him as. He's the man who freed the slaves. But the history of Abraham Lincoln is a little interesting in that he wasn't a classic abolitionist. He wasn't one of those that was on the front end of the battle to wage war against slavery. And in fact, you might remember when we studied the Civil War, he wasn't even all that intent on ending slavery when the war began. His goal was to, I hope you can remember it, it was to keep the Union together. It was only in the middle of the war, 1863, that he finally got around to saying, okay, the thing we need to do is get rid of slavery. So we'll finish up today looking at him. Your assignment is pretty straightforward. You're going to do a short bit of reading in chapter 3, section 5. And it's going to start with a religious movement, explaining the Second Great Awakening. This highly religious, very passionate movement that swept across the northern and southern states, as well as out into the West, during the 1830s. I want you to consider how religion played a role in bringing about the increased fervor or passion over abolition. After that short passage there on the Second Great Awakening, you're going to read about some of the key abolitionists, some of the people that began the movement to end slavery. It's short, there's not much there, it's a poor section in my opinion in terms of really describing the people that were at such a critical place in American history. But once you're done with that short piece of reading, then your substitute is going to give you the documents on Lincoln, and you're going to wrap it all up so you can put it together. All right, when you're done with the Lincoln documents, here are your directions. You are to take a look at the 3 little passages of Lincoln, and I want you to describe in one paragraph. Okay, listen up. After you're done with all 3 of the Lincoln documents, as well as the reading in the text, I want you to describe, after the writing that you've done from the text, in one paragraph, where was Lincoln on the topic of abolition? As you can see from those documents, what was his real heart? Where was his heart? Where was his motives? In other words, put it another way, was Lincoln freeing the slaves because he was opposed to slavery? Because he hated slavery? Because he was compassionate toward the Negroes in the slave system? Or was Lincoln freeing the slaves because it was good for the war effort? It was good to rally the cause of the Northerners. It's a good question. It's a tough answer. So take a look at those 3 documents that are in the handout. Put them together with the short bit of reading in chapter 3, section 5, and the section on the Second Great Awakening, the religious revival. Put it all together. You're going to come up with some conclusions regarding this great movement to end slavery. So that's your assignment for today. Hopefully I will be back tomorrow. If so, we'll discuss it, bring it together, and then bring about some conclusions and be able to move into our next topic of prejudice in American history. All right? Continue to behave, continue to do the right thing, continue to be good students. I apologize for being gone so long, especially in light that I'll be gone another week here in a couple of weeks once my surgery is done. But I've got some interesting stories to tell you about my time on jury duty when I get back. So stay tuned for that.